Welcome, everybody, to this special event brought to you by a coalition of organizations. We are happy to be with you as a part of this coalition, Indivisible Texas Ledge. Included, we have a couple of panelists. I want to welcome Ash Hall and Rachel Vallejo Carneglia. Rachel, Ash, how are y'all doing this evening?
Good to be here.
Yeah, excited to be with y'all tonight.
Well, it's definitely exciting to be together because together feels like all we have. This legislative session was really, really rough. And the reason we want to have this event with as many Texans as possible is because we're having a vigil for our rights. And so this is a moment for us to reflect and to share what this legislature did to Texans' rights in multiple areas. Ash, you were very active at the state capitol this session. What are some of the things you've experienced throughout this session as people have been advocating and fighting for the rights of Texans?
I mean, for one thing, the lack of transparency that we've seen from a lot of the folks in power around a lot of the bills that we've been trying to fight has been particularly increased, I would say, this session. I've been doing legislative advocacy for about 10 years now, and I've never seen such an unfriendly session towards people's rights. And so there's been a lack of transparency around a lot of bills and why they were changed and how they were changed, how they passed. We've seen rule breaking by legislators to get harmful bills pushed through the process. We've seen a lot of hearings that were cut off before everybody could testify, things like that. It's been unfriendly in a lot of ways. And so I've been heartened really to see so many people continuing to show up every single day to keep fighting back, even though there are increased barriers to being able to do so.
Absolutely. And Rachel, as part of communications for Indivisible Texas Ledge, you saw the plethora of needs in terms of communicating all the things for Texans to take action on. That feeling of just the speed of the ledge was something that was pretty fierce, right?
Yeah, it was absolutely nonstop. Mostly with bad, some with good. But even as Ash was mentioning, the retaliation even amongst lawmakers was really disheartening to see. And so I'm really grateful for all of the organizers who are on the ground, like Ash and like a lot of the other organizations we have here tonight that are there every single day, making it happen for Texans, because our lawmakers are not looking out for us.
Absolutely. And we really want to highlight the amazing coalition that's come together. And Texas for All is an organization. Building a Texas for All is what their mission is. And they are the ones who helped organize this effort so all of us could come together. And so I want to highlight for everybody the organizations that have come together for this event this night. ACLU of Texas, AVAL, Battleground Texas, Black Voters Matter Texas, Common Cause, Every Texan, Jolt Action, Move Texas, Indivisible Texas Ledge and other indivisible groups, Planned Parenthood Texas Votes, Texas Democratic Party, Texas Freedom Network, the Texas Organizing Project, Reform Immigration for Texas Alliance, Texas Rising, Workers Defense Action Fund, and Sierra Club are just an amazing group of coalition members that have come together, and so many other orgs are doing amazing work throughout Texas. And so we're going to have a couple of people live in Austin as speakers start lining up to the podium, and you're going to hear a lot less from us, and you're going to hear from these amazing speakers highlighting exactly how tough this legislative session was and what we need to do now. Because we've experienced this, we've seen that elections have consequences, and so we have a lot of work between now and the next election, 2022, to change some of the factors that really impacted Texas rights. And in between that, we have some redistricting going on. And so a lot of effort is going to be needed in Texas. And so we are looking forward to our speakers to share that with us. I'm going to check in with sending a little note to our 2 members in Austin who are going to film for us. And so they'll let us know when they're ready. And also we're going to share the link to this splash page that we have around this event and why we are working for, Texans for All. And it's important for Texans to know that, so many of us are left mourning the countless attacks on our fundamental rights made by radical, out-of-touch lawmakers. Lawmakers have failed to respect the right of every Texan to live freely, raise families in healthy, safe communities with dignity and justice. And instead, the current legislative session has been filled with destructive, oppressive, and discriminatory policies that hurt the lives of real people. And so if you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from Texans on their experience with this legislative session and how this abhorrent legislative body and some of these lawmakers that are a part of it have really, really impacted you with what they have passed and what they have pursued. Thankfully, we were able to stop some things. So feel free to let us know in the chat and Facebook and YouTube. Ash, as you look beyond this legislative session and we're getting ready to come to the end of it, what are some of the things that you are looking forward to doing as we organize in Texas?
That's a good question. It's hard for me to quite see the session as being over because now we're in the middle of a fight about whether or not there's going to be an immediate special session that Dan Patrick wants on fringe issues that most Texans are not actually interested in. So I am optimistically looking forward to shutting that down if need be. I'm hoping the governor just doesn't take the bait. But, if we are finally able to move beyond the session, then I'm looking forward to teaching people about the things that we learned so that we can make everybody better advocates for our rights. So that come next session, there's even more of us going to the Capitol and speaking out and fighting back. I'm looking forward to election season and getting some of the folks who made our lives so difficult the past 6 months out of those seats and replaced with people who are compassionate and who are true leaders. So that's just a handful of things.
Absolutely. And when you look at the opportunity to work together with this amazing diversity we have in Texas and the amazing leaders and just everyday Texans who want good things, who want that better and brighter future in Texas, it is a lot to be optimistic about because there is a lot of amazing work that's happening. And it hasn't ended just because the leg session will end. And by design, it happens every 2 years, 140 days. The hope is that we just forget, and we just don't pay attention between that time. But so many Texans are now aware of this and they are ready to pay attention year round in between the off season, which there is no off season, and doing the work so that we can have the Texas that we want. Looks like we have Julio and Jasmine connected, and they are giving us some live footage. I'm going to check in with Julio here. So Julio, if you can introduce yourself to the audience who may be watching this live stream and tell us what you're seeing about this event.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So my name is Julio Acosta. I'm the program associate at Reform and Immigration for Texas Alliance. And we're just proud to be here in coalition with all these wonderful groups to make sure that the Texas legislators know that we're very, very saddened and angry at the fact that instead of pushing really, really good bills, we have to really try to stop really, really horrible ones. But we're really, really happy to be here in this coalition space. And I'll just keep showing other people here. And if you have more questions, quieren que hable, well, I don't know if you want me to speak in Spanish a little bit.
Go for it, Julio.
Solo les quería decir muchas gracias a todos por estar aquí. Y por favor, pueden compartir en el Zoom, en el Facebook, está la cosa para que puedan unirse las personas que conocen. Y así pueden escuchar la interpretación de inglés a español. Y estamos aquí en representación de la Alianza de Reforma Migratoria de Texas para decir que necesitamos buenas leyes para el pueblo, incluyendo lo que es un permiso de manejar, que no pudimos pasar la HB 1058 y la SB 607, no la pudimos pasar, pero definitivamente siga insintonado con las organizaciones www.drivetexadelante.org para saber qué podemos hacer para que lo tengamos en el año 2023. Thank you, everyone. Gracias a todos.
Thank you so much, Julio. And this is a great reminder for everyone who's watching that we do have Spanish translation through this event. There is a registration link in our event around Spanish translation. So if you want to have Spanish translation, feel free to register with that link. It's only for Spanish translation services. And we have two amazing translators with us, both Vic and Yanira, who are offering all of this content in Spanish. And so big shout out to them. Jasmine, want to hand off to you. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and just kind of tell us what you're seeing, we'd love to hear from you.
Hey y'all, I am Jasmine. There's a pretty good turnout. I'm sad for why we're here, but you know, I think it's just a sign that we're willing to do what needs to be done. If this is the direction that they want to go in, then we will mourn the loss of our rights and what they're choosing to do, and then we'll pick up the pieces and we'll keep moving forward. It's healthy.
Agree with you, Jasmine, and so glad that you're there in Austin to capture this footage and capture that we're going to be hearing, and the rallying cry for us as Texans to really come together. And so so glad that both you and Julio are there to capture this for us. So one thing we've seen through this pandemic, Ash and Rachel, is how we've had to pivot and we've had to change some of the way we organize. And one of those great examples is with what we're doing right now, live streaming, and we have Zoom going on, and we have Spanish translation happening for people as well. What has been your experience during this pandemic time of the legislature, and some of the things that have been opportunities for us?
I think it's been great that we've been able to reach a broader audience that maybe normally wouldn't have been able to engage, because you normally would have to be in Austin. You would have to go to the Capitol building to do a lot of these testimonies and speaking to your lawmakers. And now they are certainly opening up a teensy bit more to digital testimony and hearing from their constituents in digital ways, which only increases accessibility for those that normally wouldn't be able to go to Austin. And so that's been really great. I absolutely think they could have done more and should have done more, but it is what it is, and this is where we are. So that was a great opportunity, and I think something we need to expand upon in the next session.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Still in it. There's also a pandemic happening at these houses. And this song is called Miles de Mías. It's a bilingual cumbia. I hope we're celebrating diversity tonight. We're celebrating the beauty of Texas. And so we'll kick it off with something a little chill. I need to know you're closer than 2,000 miles, or the tips of my fingers miss the curve of your smile. Still does make me mad inside, but you my lover to find. I'm walking the block in a stupor of rage, and I got no more to give than what I've given today. I need someone to steal my mind, but you my lover to find. You are to find. Te quiero, me pierdo. Si tú no estás aquí, extraño, me engaño. Para aguantar otro día más, te añoro, te espero. Miles de días desgástan porque it's cold without your embrace around me. I'm frozen to how, waiting on bended knee. Your name ignites this heart pierdo. Si tú no estás aquí, me extraño, me engaño. Para aguantar otro día más, te añoro, te espero. Miles de días, desgástame. All right, who can give me a grito? Come on, let's do it otra vez. Tú tienes mi ser, tú tienes mi vida, tú tienes mi alma, amor mío, te quiero, me pierdo. Si tú no estás aquí, eso te extraño, me engaño. Para aguantar un día más, te añoro, te espero. Miles de días desgastan mi amor. Te quiero, me pierdo. Si tú no estás aquí, te extraño, me engaño. Para aguantar un día más, te añoro, te espero. Miles de días desgastan mi amor. Vuelve amor, tú no estás aquí. Oh, vuelve amor. All right, let's do one more and then we'll kick this event off. Thank y'all so much for being here. I know so many of us, so many of y'all have been just fighting tooth and nail up till even 3 and 4 a.m. even last night. So thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for continuing to fight. Greg Abbott! We're not here for you, but we're here to talk to you for sure. All right. Woo! My hands are tied, your hands are too. Now we don't know where to go, don't know what to do. Now we don't know where to go. We'll repeat till we stop that revolving door. They told her to sit down, told her to work hard, told her to stop and wait her turn, told her to shut up, listen. Nevertheless, she persisted. I don't have what I got here. Take us to church, terrorists in two. Now we don't know where to go, don't know what to do. Dress up the devil in red, white, and blue. Now we don't know where to go, don't know what to do. Can't deny, realize we've been here before. We'll repeat till we stop that revolving door. Sit down, told her to work hard, told her to stop and wait her time, told her to shut up, listen. Nevertheless, she persisted. That's right. All right, y'all gotta be my drum here. Clap. Yeah. Come on. Keep going. Everybody put your hands in the air. Said, on my women, we rock the resistance. Yeah, she persisted. Nasty women, we rock the resistance.
So we're just going to keep that energy going as this mic gets itself rolling. Hey, everyone. I am so glad you're here tonight. Let me tell you something. This is no accident that you're here on purpose with a purpose. My name is Reverend Erica Forbes. I'm the Faith and Outreach Manager for Texas Freedom Network. I'm a licensed, thank you. I'm a licensed ordained interfaith minister. And let me tell you something, when we start talking about justice here tonight, you will never be the same. So without further ado, I wanna just give a quick shout out. There are some logistics. There are accessibility chairs right there for anyone that needs them. Please feel free to avail yourself. We'd also like to give thanks to our elected officials. If there are any new ones here, I want to first give thanks for Judge Andy Brown for being here, Travis County. Thank you for being here. So we're going to keep it moving tonight. We're going to keep it tight. We're going to keep it purposeful. We're going to have a laser-like focus because there's so much going on, right? And we know everybody's tired, but we're not tired, right? No, as a matter of fact, we're revitalized by what's happening. We're re-energized, we're renewed because we're about to double down on our efforts. As I told some reporter, we're not our grandparents. We're stronger than that. We're braver than that. We're standing on their shoulders, but we're lifting up to something higher, something greater, because this is not about us. This is about 7 generations from now, which means that the fight that we're fighting is the good fight. The fight that we're fighting is the powerful fight. The fight that we're fighting is for justice for all. And we're not going to stop, even if we have to drag our governor kicking and screaming towards what's right. So with that, I'm going to introduce our first speaker. And I really want you to give the speakers your full-on attention because they're going to be dropping seeds of knowledge. And then you're going to take these seeds and then you're going to plant them with everyone you meet and everyone you see. Yes? Yeah. All right. I'd love to invite Chris Harris, who is going to be talking about the camping ban and racial justice from Texas Appleseed. Chris.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to the organizers of this amazing event. I already feel very re-energized after an extremely long and grueling session. Hi, my name is Chris Harris. He, him, I am Director of Criminal Justice Programs at Texas Appleseed. And, I think the first and foremost thing we have to recognize is that what we saw this legislative session, what we saw with Prop B here in Austin is no less than an affirmative attempt to take us back to an era of Jim Crow and before, an era where there was recognized white supremacy and patriarchy and control of this country, and the rest of us belong to an underclass with less access, if any access, to the polls and to the ballot box, less access to, in deciding how our government functions and deciding what happens in these halls and in these buildings and with our lives, less autonomy over our persons, over our being, over what we decide to do with ourselves, our families, in our homes, in our places of worship, and ultimately subjects us to the worst forms of economic exploitation and ultimately caging that this country can bring down upon us. Okay, so when we look at criminal justice, what we saw is a major step backwards. We saw, first and foremost, now efforts to keep folks in jail, pre-trial, even more. We already have a situation in Texas where more than 2/3 of the people incarcerated in our local jails are there, and they have not been convicted of a crime. Okay, they are there overwhelmingly because they cannot afford to get out of jail. Okay, and what this legislature has done is they have expanded pretrial detention even further. Over this winter storm, we heard about horror stories from crowded jails. We heard about pipes frozen, toilets clogged, people living in squalor, dying because the state could not take care of them, refused to take care of them, not just during the winter storm, but during the pandemic as well. They have made that problem worse, actively worse, by now promising to keep more folks in jail pre-trial. Okay? And this is on top of literally every single session, the upwards of 50 new crimes that building and legislators of both parties are quick to adopt. Okay? And what do these do? What does this system do? The system of jail, right? And the system of policing. And let me get to that too. The George Floyd Act, they passed none of it. Okay?
Shame.
The largest protest movement in the history of this country. And how did they respond? They went the other way. They put more people in jail. They give police more powers, okay? And what do these systems do? They are intended to replicate the systems of slavery and Jim Crow. By keeping people in jail and incarcerated, you have no ability to participate in your government. Many face lifelong inability to vote with a felony record. Over 6% of the population of the United States today cannot vote on the basis of a felony. And they made voting rights worse. Okay? Then we're talking about, again, economic exploitation, like we've seen in previous eras of this country. While you're in jail, while you're in prison, you don't get paid. You're forced to work. And when you get out, you're subjected to lifelong discrimination in housing, in employment. We had bills up to expand access to criminal record sealing, to allow people to escape these systems. They were all cast aside. Okay? These systems are designed to keep us, again, in a permanent underclass without access to the government that controls our lives and subject to the worst forms of economic exploitation. And what this moment calls for is solidarity of a new level, okay? Solidarity amongst all of us impacted by this. Those whose abortion rights access, voting rights access to freedom in our country, access to protest have been curtailed. We must all come together now and we must fight. Okay? Thank you so much.
What you're going to hear over the course of this next 60 minutes or so are what appears to be many issues. But really, the real issue is justice. Whether we're talking about climate, whether we're talking about abortion rights, whether we're talking about anything that has to do with the marginalized and the most oppressed. What you're going to hear are the different experiences that are happening right now. But what we're talking about is justice. There's only one thing we're demanding, and that's justice for all. Keep that in mind. I'd like to invite Angelina Pui from JOLT. She is going to talk about climate and winter.
Hello, everyone. My name is Angelina Puhe. I'm an 8th grader. I'm 14 years old, and I attend the Amberton School for Young Women Leaders. There is one government in the United States of America which has ignored its citizens. That government is the Texas government. This legislative session has unfortunately demonstrated this an incredible amount. On Saturday, February 13th, the North American Winter Storm Uri, began. On Wednesday, February 24th, the storm ended. In these 11 horrible days, at least 150 lives were lost in Texas. Yet the state government has decided to take minimal action to prevent an event like this occurring in Texas again. Also, the state government has taken minimal action to aid those who have been subjected to the storm. Preventing the bitter deaths of 150 people should not be a partisan issue, but it is. Acknowledging the fact that most of the power outages in Texas during Winter Storm Uri were caused by fossil fuel energy production failure should not be a partisan issue, but it is. Shifting the blame to renewable energy, which had caused only 13% of the energy shortage in Texas, should not be a partisan issue, but it is. The Texas Republican Party is on the wrong side of these issues. But Republicans account for the majority of the Texas legislature, and the governor unfortunately acts with Republicans' beliefs. House Bill 17 prevents Texas cities from incentivizing building electrification, putting the transition to electric buildings in the government's hands. This bill was signed into law by Governor Abbott. Also, if buildings in Texas aren't electrified, Texas will continue to emit 13.7% of the United States' emissions, taking the place of the largest emitting American state. The Texas legislature is close to passing Bill 13, which punishes investors from divesting from fossil fuels. I would like to say that the winter storm that recently came through Texas, Winter Storm Uri, was likely caused by climate change, and specifically global warming. Because of the increase in water vapor in the atmosphere, because of warmer global average surface temperatures, the snowfall was much, much heavier. Because of the warmer global average surface temperature, the polar vortex slowed and became more loose, releasing cold to America and Texas specifically. Texas lawmakers are close to passing a series of bills which would pay billions to natural gas and electricity industries to bail them out, such as House Bill 4492, but are nowhere near providing aid and relief to those who are affected by Winter Storm Uri. It would simply be a paycheck of $1,000 to $2,500 and a one-time paycheck, but they're not doing that even. There was a girl who during Winter Storm Uri was kept out of school for a week. She did her homework by pencil, paper, and candle. That girl was me. We gather here today to mourn yesterday, but also to give each other hope for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelina. I decimated her name, but I dare say at 14, I am sure I will be saying her name correctly in the future. Thank you. Thank you. Listen. Lawmakers have failed to respect the right of every Texan to live freely and to raise families in healthy, safe communities with dignity and justice. And instead, the current legislative session, the one that just ended, has been filled with destructive, oppressive, and discriminatory policies that hurt the lives of real people. But we're here to say that's not okay. We're here to say that we're not going to sleep on this. We're here to say that we're not tired. We're not overwhelmed. We're not over it. No, that's not what we're saying. We're here to say that we're watching you, that we're going to stop you, that we're going to keep you from doing the horrible things you think you can do to the least of us. I'm going to ask our next speaker to come up. I have to tell you, we have some incredible people here today. I'm going to ask Victor Ricardo Pula, who is 11 years old. So all of you who are aspiring poets, he has a special poem that he's going to say.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Victor Plua, and I am 11 years old. This year, I was asked to write a poem about a color for my reading class. The color that came to me was green because green is just not a color, but what it represents. What will happen to Mother Earth in the future? Will it be eradicated by humans and fossil fuels? How much water is there left on the planet? My friends and I have thought about these questions because of what we are living through right now. People need to recognize that Mother Earth is not going to be around for much longer if we continue to make bad decisions. So we need to find solutions now. We are all in this together. This inspired to write this poem, Green, Oh Green. Green, oh green. Green is my generation. Green, oh green. Green is for clean energy. Green, oh green. Green is for nature. Green is the future. Green is not blackouts, but the new source for life. Green, oh green. Green is for turtles. Green is for health. Green is for peace. Green, oh green. Green is for new beginnings. Green is for Mother Earth.
So listen up, if you're not sure why we're here, he's why we're here. If you don't know what we're doing, he's the reason we're doing what we're doing. Right. If you don't know why it's important, talk to him, he'll tell you. Thank you. Next, I'd like to offer up Fidel Guzman, who is Workers' Defense. He's going to be speaking on workers' rights.
Hola, mi nombre es Fidel Guzmán, soy miembro de Defensa Laboral. Defensa Laboral es una organización estatal que lucha por mejores condiciones laborales para trabajadores e inmigrantes en Texas. Yo soy un trabajador de la construcción en Austin. He trabajado en varios tipos de trabajos y puedo decirles que la industria de la construcción es una industria increíblemente peligrosa para trabajar.
Hello, my name is Fidel Guzman. I am a member of Workers' Defense. Workers' Defense is a statewide member-based organization fighting for better working conditions for workers and immigrants in Texas. I'm a construction worker in Austin. I've worked various kinds of jobs, and I can tell you that the construction industry is an incredibly dangerous industry to work in.
En esta sesión legislativa, nuestros legisladores tuvieron la oportunidad de mejorar las vidas de los trabajadores en Texas, que siguen sufriendo después de más de un año de pandemia, los apagones de la tormenta invernal en febrero y las dificultades económicas que muchos de nosotros seguimos experimentando. En cambio, en esta sesión tuvimos que luchar nuevamente por los derechos humanos básicos, como el derecho de los trabajadores de la construcción a tomar un descanso de 10 minutos para tomar agua.
This session, our lawmakers had the opportunity to improve the lives of workers in Texas, suffering after more than a year into the pandemic, the winter storm blackout in February, and economic hardship many of us continue to experience. Instead, this session, we had to fight again for basic human rights, like the right for construction workers to take a 10-minute water break.
En Texas tenemos que hacer leyes que garanticen el derecho de un trabajador de la construcción a tomar un descanso para tomar agua. Piénsenlo, los trabajadores como yo nunca deberían haber estado en la posición de ir al Capitolio para una huelga por los descansos y ver a nuestros legisladores debatir mi derecho a tomar un descanso para tomar agua.
In Texas, we actually have to make laws that guarantee the right for a construction worker to take a water break. Think about that. Workers like me should have never been in a position to come out to the Capitol, thirst strike for hours to shed light on this issue, and watch our lawmakers debate my right to take a water break.
Las familias trabajadoras en Texas merecen algo mejor que esto.
Working families in Texas deserve better than this.
Thank you so much for those remarks. And as we all know, everyone is a worker. That governor in there, that governor is a worker, and that governor works for us.
Right.
So while they decide whether he deserves water, we need to decide whether he deserves to be in that house. So I'd like to invite our next speaker. And it's Deanna Lafray, who's going to be, has clearly her own cheering section. And she's going to be speaking on voting rights and Black folks matter.
Hello, everyone. Before I get started, I first want to share a story to kind of remind us all of where we came from, especially folks who are my age and younger, because a lot of our political experience was born of hope. I remember being a sophomore in college and being able to vote for Barack Obama for the first time. That was my first time voting. And it was the first time that we were able to select someone who looked like me and represented the things that were important to me. And when I was at the inauguration, I remember being there with my best friend, and there was a young lady around my age standing next to her grandmother, and she was interpreting what was being said in Spanish to her grandmother so that she could understand what was being shared. And in that moment, I immediately called my great grandmother, right? It reminded me of all the folks that went before me that made this situation possible. And I wanted her to know that her seed had made it to that moment. And so I just wanted to share that to remind you all of what we were born of, right? Anytime someone tries to instill seeds of fear, remember that you have roots of hope, and hope is always stronger than fear. So I'm the state coordinator for Black Voters Matter. We are a national power building organization that focuses its efforts on voter registration, policy advocacy, and local infrastructure development in 15 states across the country. In many of those areas, we are dealing with several voter suppression bills that resemble HB 6 and SB 7, which seek to criminalize voter support, over-amplify simple mistakes, minimize expanded voting options in minority counties, and diminish the power wielded by local officials. This essentially is a resurgence of the Jim Crow laws of the civil rights era that sought to confuse, intimidate, and immobilize communities of color. Because of this rampant attempt to further suppress the minority vote, in addition to striking down detrimental bills, we believe that federal legislation is necessary in order to effectively combat the layered repressive strategy of those in power who seek to maintain control of the electoral process. HR 1, also known as For the People Act, is a perfect example of what is needed in this moment. This legislation would expand voting rights, change campaign finance laws, limit partisan gerrymandering, and create new ethic rules for federal office holders. In addition to holding elected officials accountable, we think it's also necessary to call out corporations and entities that provide funding to individual campaigns and support legislation that dilutes the voice of the people. Over the past few weeks, we have seen a wave of companies speaking out about voter suppression bills, and we expect other large companies to follow suit. There are some companies who release statements that did not adequately address how harmful these bills will be, and also fail to acknowledge the disproportionate effect bills like SB 7 will have on the African American communities that many of their employees live in. During the protest last summer, after the death of George Floyd, many of these companies that are now silent made public statements implying that they were in support of protecting lives, all lives, including Black lives. Now is the perfect opportunity for these entities to make good on their promise of leveraging their influence and resources to fight widespread oppression and blatant disregard for human life. We are here today to call out the bystanders for their inconsistent engagement and demand that they stand with us on the side of justice. In the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., nonviolent direct action seeks to create such a crisis and establish such creative tension that a community that has consistently refused to negotiate is forced to confront the issue. There is a type of constructive nonviolent tension that is necessary for growth. Black Voters Matter is dedicated to fighting against all forms of suppression at the state and federal level, and we will praise and shame whenever necessary to push our call to justice forward. We know all too well the generational tactics of voter suppression that have plagued our communities far too long. Although Black Voters Matter is based in Georgia, we are committed to investing in the grassroots efforts across the state of Texas that seek to preserve the progress that has been made. It is our responsibility to protect the rights that were purchased with the blood of our ancestors and to work in solidarity to ensure everyone has a seat at the table. We will not tolerate their attempt to silence our communities and will continue to make clear demands of our elected officials. There is no gray area when dealing with injustice, and those who hide behind the shadows will be forced to take a stand. We recognize this moment, and we will not let up until all of our communities have full representation and unlimited access to the electoral process. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to have another song, but I want to make sure that you drive this point home. Our responsibility is not to convince this government that our life matters. We can't make them care. Our responsibility is to not let them forget that our lives matter to us. That's our responsibility. Gina.
All right, I think this is a perfect time to let's sing a little bit together. So this song is called Todo Cambia. It's all in Spanish. We've heard from our youth. We've heard about, there are so many things that call upon our hearts that are the reasons that we're here today. And all of those things need our hearts and our action and our changes. And so this is a song that was written by a Chileno, Julio Neuhauser, was made famous by the voice of Mercedes Sosa from Argentina. And it's called Todo Cambia. And I hope you will sing with me. Todo Cambia means everything changes. Cambia lo superficial, cambia también lo profundo, cambia el modo de pensar, cambia todo en este mundo, cambia el clima con los años, cambia el pasto, su rebaño, y así como todo cambia, que yo cambie no es extraño.
English?
Cambio el fino más brillante, de mano en mano su brillo,
cambio el nido del pajarillo, cambio el sentir de un amante, cambio rumbo al caminante, aunque esto le cause daño. Y así como todo cambia, que yo cambie no es extraño. Cambia, todo cambia. Cambia, todo cambia. Eso. Yeah, y'all try that. Cambia, todo cambia. Cambia, todo cambia. Cambia, todo cambia. Cambia el sol en su carrera cuando la noche subsiste. Cambia el planta y se viste de verde la primavera. Cambio el pelaje la fiera, cambio el cabello el anciano. Y así como todo cambia, que yo cambie no es extraño. Todos. Cambia, todo cambia. Eso. Cambia, todo cambia. Cambia, todo cambia. Cambia, todo cambia. Pero no cambie mi amor, por más lejos que me encuentre, ni un recuerdo, ni un olor de mi pueblo y de mi gente. Cambio el que cambió ayer, tendrás que cambiar mañana. Y así como cambio yo en estas tierras lejanas. Fuerte. Cambia, todo cambia. Cambia, todo cambia. Come on, y'all, let's go. Let's break heroes. Cambia, todo cambia. Eso. Cambia, todo cambia. Keep singing, y'all. Que me encuentre y al recuerdo de un dolor de mi pueblo y de mi gente. Que cambió ayer, tendrá que cambiar mañana. Y así como cambio yo en estas tierras lejanas. Let's get loud. Cambia, todo cambia. Cambia, todo cambia. Cambia, todo cambia. Cambia, todo cambia. Let's hear those beautiful voices. Cambia, todo cambia. We need everybody's voices, all the stories. Cambia, todo cambia. So much power here. Cambia, todo cambia. Cambia, todo cambia.
Outstanding, Gina. Outstanding. I want to make sure you know a couple of things before we finish up our speakers. At the end, we're going to have a sacred moment. You're going to have some candles. We're going to do just a sacred moment where we anchor this in awareness. So stay for that. I want to also remind you that you were handed a QR code on pieces of paper. Everybody have that? Where is that? Just wave it in the air. If you haven't gotten one, we have some folks handing it out. And here's what you can do. You can scan that code and that was passed out. You can register to join us on Tuesday, June 22nd, to join with others across the state to build formidable people power and transformative change. I want you to know that it doesn't matter how many people are here. If there's just one of us, we have the power to transform everyone's life, right? And keep in mind that radical self-love starts with the individual. It expands to the family, community, and organization, and ultimately transforms society, all while still unwaveringly holding you in the center of that expansion. That, my friend, is scale. All right. our next speaker, I'd love to invite up. And here's the thing. We have about 4 more speakers that are going to come up. And as you can see, their heart is in their remarks. So Sophia, who's from top, who's gonna talk about Medicaid expansion.
How are we doing tonight? How are we doing tonight? So thank you everyone for showing up tonight, and thank you for the organizations that put this thing together. My name is Sophia Sepulveda. I am first generation Mexican American. I am a transgender woman. And I am the statewide healthcare justice organizer with the Texas Organizing Project. What can we say about this legislative session other than it failed? It failed to protect trans kids with the constant unscientific attacks against the future trans generation. It failed to protect our people by denying our cities to continue with mass mandates. It failed to protect our Black and Brown communities by passing Jim Crow 2.0. It failed our Texas women by virtually ending access to secure and safe abortion access. And it failed to take care of our communities by denying to expand Medicaid in Texas. Well, in the middle of the pandemic, we saw how Dan Patrick threw our elderly under the bus by insinuating that they much rather die for the country than continue to shelter in place. We saw how the leadership continued calling the mask mandate a communist tactic while ignoring the increase of COVID cases, particularly in Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities, and denying access to needed care. We saw how the priorities of our elected leaders were more into that what special interests and donors wanted than what the people in Texas wanted. Is this fair? And while our people, our communities continue to struggle to get healthcare, stay housed, or staying safe by being able to be with family and getting a bit of extra help to a bit of unemployment, what does Greg Abbott do? Cut access to unemployment, pushing our communities, the most vulnerable, to go back to work, pushes to continue whitewash our history through ending critical race theory in school, and arming every dangerous white man, and yes, every dangerous white man, to further terrorize our communities. To quote Representative Diego Bernal, we are in a state that is legislative at pro-life conservatives while continue to push anti-life legislation. Is this right? No, it's not right. Almost 70% of Texas support Medicaid expansion. We have three chances of getting this passed this legislative session, but their priorities are not aligned with the priorities of the people. So much, they must rather attack our communities, vilify our people, and pitting us against each other rather than address the real problems. Our failing infrastructure, our failing healthcare system, lack of funding to schools, and the starvation minimum wage that our representatives continue to uphold. Representatives Morgan Mayer and Angie Button, both who run on their Dallas districts with Medicare expansion, both Republicans, by the way, on their platform, in a city with 550,000 people uninsured, shied away and voted against Medicare expansion, like including Representative Coleman's Amendment 63, we would have expanded some access to care to a small number of the uninsured. Shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you. For once, we must be honest with each other. Medicare expansion will largely benefit communities of color. So the inaction of our Republican-controlled Texas legislation is rather obvious. Blatant racism. When COVID affects mostly Black, Latina, and Indigenous communities, it is not because we are predisposed to catching the virus. It is not because our DNA makes us more susceptible to the pandemic. It is not because our heritage, background, and skin color makes us more susceptible to this virus. It is certainly because of the racist legislation that they continue pushing in our communities
to work in the front lines during the pandemic as essential workers while deeming them expendable and denying them access to care to our most vulnerable. Well, now the session is almost over. We are here to tell our representatives we are not going anywhere. We will continue to organize, polarize, and activate our communities so we can, in the near future, have a Texas that works for its people, not just for the corporations, and build together a Texas for all. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Thank you, y'all.
Thank you, Sophia, for bringing the fire as we all need it. I'd like to recognize a couple of officials that are here. I recognize County Judge Andy Brown, State Rep Ron Reynolds, and actually our Mayor of Austin, Steve Adler, is here. Thank you for being here. I want to remind you that capitalism profits on self-hatred. And none of us hate us. None of us hate ourselves, and none of us hate each other. We will hold that to be truthful and self-evident. All right. Our next speaker is Brown Merritt, elementary educator.
My name is Bronwyn Merritt. I'm a teacher at Brentwood Elementary in Austin ISD. This is my first time to do anything like this ever. I'm also a proud Education Austin member. Every day I get to do the most incredible work with the most incredible people. I teach fifth graders, my Merritt Marvels, at a public school right here in our capital city. To prepare the words I wanted to share with you tonight, I didn't just read blog posts or the news to try to educate myself, and I didn't just reach out to the many knowledgeable colleagues and parents and professionals and experts and caring community members that surround me every day. Instead, I went right to one of my greatest resources, my students. They are the people that this bill, HB 3979, will most directly affect. When I told my Marvels that I was going to be here tonight to advocate for each and every one of them, as well as every other student in our Texas public school system, they cheered me on and lifted me up with such excitement and pride. In fifth grade, our social studies focus is American history. We've spent so much good time together this year reading, wondering, discussing, and thinking critically about history from many different perspectives from a wide variety of diverse resources. So as my students and I talked about my part in this vigil tonight, it made sense to give them the very resource that threatens to limit their own futures, House Bill 3979. My students had so many thoughts they shared in our Zoom chat with one another. Many just said, wow, at first. Then there were some statements like, I kind of agree and I kind of disagree. I don't understand why we need a law for this. I want to know the other stories. I want to do an inquiry project on this. Then some started to ask questions, important questions. Wait, has this passed yet? Where can I find out more? Who wrote this? What do they know about education? Why is this only written for a person's race or sex, but not other identities? And then these fifth graders' thoughts became more personal and filled with a little more urgency. One student wondered out loud, what about me? Where do I fit in as a Hispanic trans boy? This is how the best teachers teach. We have real discussions with our students about the reality we all face differently. We collaborate in our classroom communities. We facilitate and talk through tough topics with our students. And all the while, we are respectful, empathetic, and caring. These young people are often so much brighter and more thoughtful than the adults who are tasked with making laws that are supposed to protect each of them. The House is looking at the Senate amendments made to HB 3979, but it is all but inevitable that the bill will pass in some form into law. And what a chilling effect it will have. As written, it will likely push districts to be risk adverse and not allow teachers like myself to discuss any topics that could be considered controversial. Furthermore, it will likely limit learning, diversity, and inclusion efforts already underway in schools across Texas, including our own Austin ISD. Once again, it seems though lawmakers believe educators can't be trusted. This conservative overreach is an insult to the professionalism of educators across Texas. Despite the setbacks this bill will create, it is important to remember that we must continue to fight for public schools our children deserve through higher funding and equitable access to services for all students. While the passage of HB 3979 hampers the movement toward equity, I know that educators will continue to do what's right in the best interest of children. We cannot underestimate or discount our students' ability to see things as they are. We cannot disregard and disrespect our students' intrinsic interest in the world around them. We cannot misread or misrepresent what our students feel, understand, or want to know. We cannot expect our children to be shielded from the hard facts of history and our chaotic current events. These students are our brighter future. Thank you. Let's hear it one more time for a teacher who worked all day and came back. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to invite Rocio Perez from Texas Freedom Network to come and speak on gun control.
A little short. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Regina, the interpreters. My name is Rocio. Buenas tardes. Good evening, everyone. I'm a proud fronteriza from the beautiful binational, bicultural community of El Paso. Yes. If you've never been to the Sun City, you've probably recognized the name from the news. On August 3rd, 2019, has been described as the deadliest anti-Latino attack in recent US history. 23 people's lives were taken at a Walmart at the hands of another mass shooting by white supremacy in this country and in this state. 23 lives stolen because of failed leadership, taken from us due to the dangerous rhetoric that's been used to describe my community. Rhetoric that our leaders have chosen to spread like wildfire, devastating cities like mine. Governor Greg Abbott doesn't care. He made promises to my representative, Joe Moody, and to my community that this legislative body would take gun violence seriously. 23 is not just the number, but it is to him. He has chosen to not keep those promises. To us, we will never forget, and we will hold him accountable. A todas las mamás, los papás, hermanas, hermanos, primos, amigos, seres queridos que perdieron a alguien, el 3 de agosto del 2019, 23 no solo es un número, les cambió la vida para siempre. If you lost a loved one to gun violence, the pandemic, the winter storm, or at the hands of the police, my heart aches with you. Si has sido separado de su familia en la frontera, mi corazón está contigo, pero también mi coraje y mi activismo. No te olvidaré. The stages of grief are not linear, but we must keep moving forward. As a Mexican-American immigrant queer woman, I am devastated and disgusted by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and Governor Greg Abbott. They are more interested in their power than in the lives of all working Texans. Every time our communities were hit, they did not show up, but you did. So thank you for being here today, for showing up, for standing with me, for standing together in our pain, in our frustration, in our feelings, and in our collective and individual power. Although this has been one of the absolute worst legislative sessions, there is no way in hell we're backing down or giving up. Right. This is happening because we are so close. Our elected leaders see the writing on the wall. They're scared, and they should be. They know we're coming for them at the ballot box. They see the clock ticking. They see our power. I need you to see it too, to believe me when I say that you matter, that you and all the parts that make you unique, that make you who you are, matter. I need you to believe that the change we're fighting for is possible, it's going to happen, and it's worth it. We deserve representatives to show up for us the way we have been showing up for each other. I'm not a citizen, and I have never been able to cast my ballot. But you know what? I will be when the clock runs out. I will be voting for the first time and in remembrance of all the lives that have been taken from us. While I may be one person, I know I'll have my friends, family, and community standing next to me at the ballot box. We'll continue to fight until we elect leaders who reflect the best of all Texas, leaders who we can be proud of, call allies and friends. We cannot let hate, bigotry, negligence, and injustice continue to ruin this state. So please show up again, vote with me, organize with me and your community. And as Reverend Erica just mentioned, if you haven't already scanned the QR code that was passed around, register to join us on Tuesday, June 22nd, to join the others across the state and build a formidable people power and transformative change that we need. Thank you so much.
We're going to have Gina come back up. And I want to remind us of the words of Dr. King, who famously said, freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. That's why we're here, to demand the freedom, to demand justice. We can't be upset that they're not giving it to us. We just have to guide them and direct them. That's our job. Gina, you are up.
All right, y'all. So I love all these voices tonight. Rocio, muchas gracias. Like I'm queer. This is my wife. We got, we're also Catholic. There's so much like love and passion here tonight. So I'm actually this is a sneak peek. This is a remix I did of a song I played earlier. It's called She Persisted. And I literally, it's gonna be like a new gay pride anthem. And so I'm gonna play it for you guys. This is like, we're shooting a music video with Queens from RuPaul's Drag Race next week at Rain. Like, it's gonna be dope. So y'all literally get a first listen. I hope you like it. Let's try it out. My hands are tied. Your hands are too young. Don't wait more. Let's be in the light. Start with the truth. Don't wait go. Don't want to get tonight. Realize with the head wall. Is there will be till it's not that we want to know. Please don't let it sit down. Don't let it work hard. Don't let it stop and wait for a turn. Don't let it shine out. Still stand. Nevertheless. Oh my God, let's nothing to do now, we don't know where to go. Don't know what to do. Red, white, and blue, now we don't know where to go. Don't know what to do. Is it love? Real love? Is it gone? Is it real? Well, hey, still got that to walk and know. Don't let it sit down. Don't let it work hard. Don't let it stop and wait for a turn. Don't let it shut up. Listen, nevertheless. Hey, come on, y'all. Take on the one. Thank you, Gina. Thank you. Go, Gina!
Hey, listen up. To dance, to sing, to have joy is an act of resistance. So Don't get it twisted. The reality is there's some serious things going on and right there. Yeah. But we will persist, which means we will dance, we will sing, we will create, we will keep on keeping on, and that's how we do it. So thank you, Gina. Yeah. I'd love to invite Anna Wynn to come up and speak.
I don't need notes. I can just talk. I hope you have all night. What the hell just happened over there? They are crazy. We have vote suppression legislation. They know they're losing. That's why they have to do these things. They're crazy. We have anti-choice legislations. What's that all about? Fetal heartbeat at 6 weeks? What's wrong with them? None of them are doctors. Exactly. Fetuses don't have, embryos don't have hearts. 6 weeks. And when there is a heart, 10 to 12 weeks, it's not, you can't detect it reliably because the uterus is still in the pelvis. What's wrong with these people? Oh, back up a bit. My name's Anna Nguyen. I'm a Vietnamese American woman. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Thank you for being here. And speaking of being transgender, what's the deal? They are going to make trans-affirming health care for children into child abuse. Don't they know that 45% of gender diverse children has attempted suicide in their lives? And those who have the support of their parents, only 4%. And what's with the trans athlete ban? They say it's about fairness. They don't want trans women running in competitions for women. They never talk about trans men having to wrestle in women's divisions. Mac Bax, you may have heard of that name. He's a trans man. He's a wrestler. He was forced to wrestle in the women's division because he could not wrestle against the boys. He ended up being the state champion of Texas. He's wrestling in college now in the men's division. They never think about things like this when they try to pass legislations like this. What's wrong with these people? Every time I go over there, it's like going to the circus. It's full of clowns. But to be sure, they're not all clowns. They're really good legislators who are our allies, who have fought tooth and nail. And thanks to them, many of these anti-trans bills has died. Woo! But they will need help. They cannot do it by themselves. We need to help them. You may have heard me talk about this before. We need to vote. Each of us, my vote, your vote, his vote, her vote, everybody's vote. That's how we make change. And not just vote, but do the effort, make the effort to push that forward. Volunteer to be a volunteer deputy registrar, register people to vote. It takes a couple of hours to train yourselves. That's how we magnify our strength. Help people to go vote. Go vote early. The poll opens at 7. I know that there are people who may have to take several buses to go vote. And that's a real hardship. But this is a temporary hardship. We have to do it now to save ourselves from the hardship that will be forever if we don't do it. This is a huge task. This is like an elephant that we have to challenge. But the way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And let's do it together. We have to be everywhere, do everything all the time. And let me close by saying that do not feel guilty if you're not everywhere, do everything, be everything. Because we are like a choir. We don't all have to sing. Some of us can pause and take a breath. It will still be a beautiful choral symphony. So let's stand together and let's sing together.
Thank you, Anna. Listen, we don't start out to fight justice. That seems impossible. Every single day we get up and we say, we are going to fight for justice today. Every single day. And if we do that every single day, one day at a time, we will have justice. The fact that we're standing here right now, each of us, all of us together, shows that every single day, one day at a time, justice is served. I'm going to ask our next speaker who's going to come up, and right after that, we have a little poem, and then we're going to anchor all of this in a special sacred moment. Here we are. Stephanie from We Testify is going to come out.
Hello, how are y'all? My name is Stephanie Gomez. My pronouns are she, her, ella, and I think a lot of people know me from my day job, which is fighting for an equitable democracy. But I really did get my start in 2012 when I, as a Texas high school student, had to get an abortion. That is literally what drives me every day to come to this Capitol and fight for a better democracy, because I had this experience when I was younger. I want to be clear. The easy part was when I looked at the pregnancy test and found out that I was pregnant. That's because from that moment, I knew I was going to get an abortion, that I wasn't going to be pregnant. I did not want to be. The hard part was getting the actual abortion. The hard part was finding a clinic that I could access easily. The closest clinic to me was an hour and a half away, which might not seem ridiculous to some people, but like that's on the better side of it. There are people who have to travel outside of the state to receive basic health care. Yup. The hard part was figuring out how, even after receiving financial assistance from an organization in the clinic, I was going to come up with the extra $400 to pay for that abortion when I was working at McDonald's, which was another radicalizing moment, by the way. But that was, it was to get up to $400 to cover the rest of the cost of that abortion. That was like 3 paychecks. It's a significant cost. The other hard part was all of the state mandated shame tactics that I had to endure. When I came into the clinic staff were supportive, my guiding light throughout the entire experience. But I can't tell you how many times I heard the phrase, this is not my medical expertise speaking, but I am required by the state of Texas to do the following. To tell you that you're more likely to get breast cancer, that you're more likely to suffer from depression, because the state of Texas requires, I am required by law to show you the screen. I am required by law to play for you the heartbeat. But you can look away if you want to. I should have never been asked. When a person makes a decision, you do not ask them at every possible point if they're sure. Because I knew from the moment I was in that bathroom having an entire Juno moment that I was going to have this abortion. It was not easy getting my abortion in 2012, and it has not gotten easier now in 2021. Every year I have watched alongside so many of you how Greg Abbott and all these other anti-abortion legislators utilize every single possible moment to restrict access to abortion, which is a human right, not a legal right. And they don't even have to be in session to attempt to take that away from us. We saw that they would even use a global pandemic to try to shut down your ability to get an abortion. And just weeks ago, Greg Abbott signed into law a bill that bans abortion as early as 6 weeks. One of the most extreme anti-abortion laws in the entire country. Again, forcing Texans to travel out of state to get basic health care. It is crazy the lengths that this guy and his co-conspirators will go to pass legislation that Texans don't even want or need. A poll from our beloved partners, published by Progress Texas, but I believe commissioned by the Trust, Respect, Access Coalition, my faves, showed that across the political spectrum, Texans are united against this extreme abortion ban. They passed these laws because it serves their racist, oppressive, capitalist, partisan interests. Or because they passed all this legislation, as we have seen, because their buddies at the Heritage Foundation asked them to. Not because these laws actually benefit the people of Texas, not because he's in that mansion worrying about the well-being of the people that he serves. The strength of Texas has always been the people and the communities working to create change. Y'all made me the person that I am, the organizer, the storyteller that I am. When I needed an abortion, it was my community that supported me. When I felt like the only person in Texas that ever had an abortion, the abortion storytelling community came to tell me that I was affirmed as a person who got an abortion, as a Latinx woman, as a queer woman. They have always supported every part of me. This has been said already, but it cannot be said enough. Greg Abbott, Paxton, Patrick, and Phelan, they serve this oppressive system. They do not serve the people of Texas. They are upholding an oppressive system, and they hate us for trying to rip it down. And I don't care what a bunch of old senile people, lawmakers, say. You get an abortion because you can reach out to your community and ask. Y'all now know Stephanie Gomez from Houston. If you need an abortion, my DMs are open. I will do whatever I can in my power to help you and your loved people get the abortion that you deserve. And I really, really am so glad y'all are out in community. Please connect with these amazing organizations that have been with me since I was in high school. And I really hope to see y'all on Saturday at the abortion rally and tell these fools, do not mess with abortions. Do not mess with Texas abortion. 11 a.m., literally across the street at the South Steps. Thank you all so much.
She rocked it, didn't she? She rocked it. Folks, let me tell you something. This isn't over. This fight is not over. This fight is just beginning. The fight for justice goes on forever, and we're here for it. We're about to move into something sacred right now. My name is Reverend Erica Forbes. I'm a licensed interfaith minister. I'm part of the queer community. I'm in love with a cisgender white man, and listen, I love him dearly, and I tell him every day, go get your people. And I'm also a woman who's had 2 abortions, and I speak openly about that. We've got 5 children between us. No one is more pro-family. No one is more pro-life than I am, but no one is more pro-choice than I am. And to piggyback on Stephanie, if you need prayer or a blessing or affirmation or whatever it is you need that's sacred, I'm here for you. I'm going to invite my stepdaughter, Carolyn, to come on up. She's going to be closing with a poem. I want to make sure you have that QR code because it's not just about voting. It's about doing something. It's about voting and doing something. It's about voting and doing something again and again and again. And if you're tired, lay down and then get back up and do something again and again and again, because this is not just about us. This is about all of us. She's going to be reading a poem that I did not sign up for, by the way. Thanks. When people say, "We have made it through worse before," by Clint Smith. All I hear is the wind slapping against the gravestones of those who did not make it, those who did not survive to see the confetti fall from the sky, those who did not live to watch the parade roll down the street. I have grown accustomed to the lifetime of aphorisms meant to assuage my fears, pithy saying meant to convey that everything ends up fine in the end. There is no solace in the rearranging language that make a different word tell the same lie. Sometimes the moral are the universe. The moral are the universe does not bend in a direction that will comfort us. Sometimes it bends in ways we don't expect, and where people who fall off in the process. Please, dear reader, do not say I am hopeless. I believe there's a better future to fight for. I simply accept the possibility that I may not live to see it. I have grown wary of telling myself lies that I may one day begin to believe. We are not all left standing after the war has ended. Some of us become ghosts by time and the dust has settled. That's So there's a couple of elected officials that we want to make sure are recognized. Austin City Council Member Greg Caesar is here. Educator, Rotary NAACP. Alderwoman Arnetta Murray from Baronzia County is here. We're grateful for your presence. So all of you have a lighted candle. And I want you to know something. It doesn't matter what religious affiliation you are, or if you are no religious affiliation, that's good too. What I know is that we all breathe the same air.
Right.
What I know is that we're all part of the same spark. What I know is that each of us is part of something divine. Call it what you will, or call it no thing at all. There's a presence, there's an intelligence, call it love. Whatever you call it, it is within you. It is all around you. And today, tonight, in this moment, what each of us represents is not just ourselves. We represent our ancestors. We represent the future. Each of us, every single one of us, has people that we love, people that we are fighting for. Each of us, every one of us, has new horizons to explore. Each and every one of us carries this light within us. And because we do, we can actually take that light and light someone else's candle. That's the reality. That's the truth about each and every one of us. So whatever your belief system is, whoever you are, whatever speaks to you, we're going to take that into this moment of silence. And here's the thing about silence. It allows each and every one of us to remember the truth of who and what we are. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes if and as you're able. You don't have to. You don't have to bow your head. Do whatever feels right for you, because there's enough room that is big enough, deep enough, wide enough for all of us to fit in. We know that. As we enter into this sacred moment of silence, which is so powerful. And now together, we take an inhale for all of those that can't breathe, and we take an exhale for all of us that are breathing. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking that moment to anchor in awareness. Something bigger is happening. Whether the governor sees it or not, whether the legislative body knows it or not, it doesn't matter because we know it. And we are the light. Thank you. There have been a number of announcements. I'd like to remind you of the event happening on Saturday. I'd also like to remind you that as we close, each of us is charged with finding our way home safely right after this event. And we'll see you here again on Saturday. We have a couple of other announcements. I'm going to let them come up and take the mic.
Yeah, I don't really have any announcements, but thank you so much for coming and for honoring. You know, it's been a really tough year. We've lost a lot of lives. We just saw that the new death count from the winter storm was officially increased, and instead they've been focusing on banning abortion, attacking transgender kids, suppressing the vote. So I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate your fight. We will see you on Saturday for the big abortion rights rally, 11 a.m. at the South Stairs. Thank you. That's what I was thinking.
I'm surprised.
Oh man, not like this one. Angry.
Good job.
It looks like we have reached the end of our speakers for this amazing event. This is Together for Texas. And we had so many amazing speakers and organizations come together. We're going to go back to Austin here in a little bit to see if they're able to talk to Texans and just get their response to this event, their response to the 87th Texas Legislative Session. But Ash, Rachel, I'd love to get your thoughts around what we just saw together and what happened in front of the governor's mansion.
Rachel, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, wow is really all I have to say. Everyone's stories, everyone's passion was really inspiring. It was great to see so many be able to actually come together in person for something like this, even safely and distanced. And all of you that are joining us digitally, thank you as well. This was just really, really great, really needed after a really rough session.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I found the whole thing very impactful in a multitude of ways. Like, first of all, like, it really highlights truly how embarrassing this session ought to be for all of the legislators involved. Because really, after the blackouts and during the pandemic and everything else that our state has gone through, the priorities should have been really clear, and there should be a lot to show for it by now, and there simply isn't. Because the folks in power chose different priorities that the majority of people don't even want. And so we are still just as unprepared for the next blackout. Our electrical grid is still vulnerable. Folks are not getting relief for that or for the pandemic. I mean, the list goes on and on. So that part stuck out to me a lot, just like really how embarrassing the session ought to be for the people running our state right now. But I was also, again, struck by the resilience of our communities and the way that storytelling has such power and the way that it moves all of us to keep fighting. And so, agreed, I think this was very much needed. And I find myself once again extremely proud of the people of Texas and what we can do together.
Absolutely. And I think that's where we, saw so much inspiration around why we need to keep working together, what's motivating us to keep working together. And just a special shout out to the June 22nd statewide organizing call. We are asking for any Texan that is interested in coming together with this coalition of organizations to start talking about the organizing that we're going to be doing now that the legislation is over. And so this is a huge coalition of organizations that will most likely grow before the June 22nd meeting. And we want to see you there. So be sure to join us during that call so that we can come together and start doing that work. And as the speakers went through the list of rights and issues that we need to address that were negatively impacted from this legislative session, either through legislation that was passed or legislation that was attempted to be passed, it is a reminder for all of us to know that there are so many different spaces we have to work together. And it won't be one person, it won't be one organization, but it will truly be all of us because this work is so big and there's so much. So every community, every district, House district, Senate district, every city, county, we want to make sure we are connecting with Texans across the state so that we can move forward on this work. And so once again, be sure to join us June 22nd. Be sure to get connected with one of the organizations you saw highlighted or that we have listed in the Texas for All page. And also, if there's another organization that you're working with locally, let's make sure we're all connected together. And so reach out to any of us so that we can make sure that we are all able to build that relationship and that ability to work for that better and brighter future in Texas that we want. I'm gonna check in with Jasmine. It looks like they maybe gone offline momentarily. We're gonna see if we can try to get connected with them again, just to see the people who were there in Austin at that event to kind of give us their response to it. But when you were listening to the speakers today and Gina Chavez's amazing music that Gina shared, what were some of your highlights, Rachel?
I said in our chat here that I was major fangirling over Gina Chavez. And then she said we were going to get to hear this amazing remix that she hasn't even released yet. She's about to make a music video with some drag queens from RuPaul's Drag Race. And that just put me over the edge. So I was really excited about that. Really grateful to her for kind of, bringing some spirit and some life. Also, really cool to hear everyone sing together, which was really awesome. And yeah, I have to echo what Ash said about, the way that we were able to come together and be resilient as Texans. And that was just so on display tonight. Really cool to see.
Ash, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, the music was definitely a highlight. And really, for the past 2 years or so, I've been thinking more and more about how we should incorporate music and the arts into organizing, and I am heartened to see what that looks like tonight, and it gives me hope for future events. So that was certainly a highlight. That was awesome. There were some friends of mine that spoke tonight, like Stephanie Gomez. I've always found her to just be like a high impact speaker, and I love her fearlessness and boldness around her own abortion and abortion access for all Texans. I hope that people are inspired by her energy and are able to bring that to the Capitol on Saturday for that rally. I loved that the 11-year-old kid that read the poem. That was beautiful. It's really cool to see people getting involved at such a young age. Yeah, gosh, the whole thing feels like a giant prolonged highlight, really. This was beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we also want to give a big shout out to our behind the scenes support with interpreters, Vic and Yanira. You're seeing Vic on the camera right now. You may not be able to hear him because he is interpreting everything we're saying in Spanish to our audience who is in this webinar listening to it in Spanish, and they've been commenting and communicating on the chat. And so that's just an amazing thing that we've been able to do today with the partners that came to the table and really brought together the resources so this could happen. And so Vic, Yarina, we can't thank you enough for your amazing work. Well, as we talked about, the legislative session is about to end. We're just a few days from the end of the legislature. There's still a couple of days for not so good things to happen. And so we want people to stay plugged in until they actually close out this session. But a couple of things to keep, to be aware of that are on the horizon. We know at least one special session is going to happen this fall because we are pending the completion of the census data that's going to be available to the legislature so that they can complete redistricting. And so the redistricting process will be where they're going to redraw the maps. This is an every 10-year process. And so this is why we did the census, so that they can get the population data and redraw the maps. And so Texans have been giving testimony because every time this happens for Texas, it ends up in court. It has a big pushback because they do things that are, not according to the standards that are needed for redrawing lines, and that are not negatively impacting minority groups or disenfranchised groups. And so Texas really has tried hard on both sides of the aisle to do this. And so we want to make sure that as many Texans as can are aware of this, are educated about it, and can participate in making sure that they are letting their legislators know that they want fair maps for Texas. We want to have, true, honest representation. It's one thing we see in the legislature right now is that the body of the legislature does not represent the population in Texas right now. And so we need more diversity. We need more women legislators. We need more diverse legislators. And so there's a big opportunity for us to continue to push for that with this special session. In addition to that, we may have a second special session. We know Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is working really hard to try to get a special session so that anything that didn't pass during regular session that is a part of the far right Republican agenda has an opportunity to pass again. We've also seen reporting where he really is wanting to be the hero of the legislature as a potential way to run for governor. We haven't heard anything official from him yet about that, but anything that elevates him in the eyes of his base, then he's going to try to make happen. And so be on the lookout for that. That may be happening this year. And so the other thing is then after this year of at least one, maybe two special sessions, we're going to have the 2022 election. And so this is where will be really important for everyone to stay plugged in and to help those candidates in your district so that we can elect better legislators. We saw that in the middle of a pandemic, no matter how much we try to advocate, communicate to this legislature, they were adamant about going as far right as they could with some of their policies and their pursuits. And so we can keep advocating, we can keep doing that hard work. We will keep doing that hard work, but how about let's not make it as hard? Let's have some actually better public servants who want to represent Texas and represent the diversity of Texas. And so Ash, Rachel, interested in y'all's thoughts as we look ahead at these upcoming, at least one special session, maybe two, and then the 2022 election.
I would just encourage anyone who heard something inspiring tonight to get involved with one of these organizations, whether that's us, Indivisible Texas Ledge, or any of these other amazing organizations that are out there, but especially around the redistricting process. It's going to be so important for you to get involved and make your voice heard because our votes matter. Obviously, elections have consequences, and the fairer our maps are, the better chance we have of actually having our voice heard. So definitely get involved. You can find us at indivisibletexasledge.org or check out any of the organizations that you heard from tonight. Any one of them will help you get plugged in.
Sound advice. Yeah, definitely get involved with Indivisible Texas Ledge. because we work beyond the legislative session. So including in between these special sessions, however many of them there are. And yeah, get involved with some of the organizations we saw tonight, and the ones that we didn't necessarily see here, who we know are doing great work on the ground. The one that comes to mind for me is the Transgender Education Network of Texas, especially given that Dan Patrick's big priority with getting this really far-right special session immediately after regular session ends is that he wants to attack the transgender community. So the more Texans we have boosting the power of transgender Texans, the more likely it is that we'll be able to defeat however many attempts he takes to attack us. So there's that piece too. And yeah, hopefully we don't have more than really one special session. I'd love it if we just, but we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. We're going to hand it off to Julio, who is in Austin. And we're going to see, Julio, first, just to get your response on this night and this event. Give us some of your feedback on what you thought about this. And just let you know, your camera looks like it may need to be turned a little bit to change the aspect ratio there. Let's see, let's get Julio unmuted. And Julio, let's try that again. Let's see. Okay, there
Sorry.
you go. No worries. Can you turn your camera for us, Julio? It looks like it's vertical on us.
I thought I was gonna put more.
Is it able to be seen now?
We can see you, but you may want to turn it and rotate it a little bit. Rotate your
All right,
camera.
I'm gonna see if I can find people that want to talk. So just bear with me just a quick moment, okay?
Okay.
Just 1 minute, okay? Or like 30 seconds.
Okay, sounds good. So while Julio is getting some of the people that were there in Austin to see all of this stuff live, one thing that we may have missed from home that was really amazing that we got a little glimpse of is that they handed candles out for because this is a vigil. So they towards the end, candles were given to everybody. And so looking forward to those pictures and that imagery from that.
So basically, everybody seems pretty, I think everything was already said and everybody's just a little bit tired, it seems like. So I haven't been able to find anybody that wants to speak right now.
I totally understand, Julio. Give us your thoughts on what you were like. You had a front row seat. And you may want to turn your camera a little bit because it's up and down for us. So you may want to just rotate your phone.
Like left, right, or?
Go left.
Like this?
There we go. There we go.
Okay, I apologize then. So I'll say some things in English. Basically, although right now we are only we were maybe like 150 people here. We do want to say that we're trying to represent the interests of all Texans across Texas. No matter legal status, no matter background, no matter sex identity, no matter everything, we're here in representation of all of them because we know that that state capitol behind me, that state capitol belongs to all of us. And we want the people that work there to work for us because we are their employers. And make sure to get connected to all these different wonderful organizations all across Texas and find out how you can get connected. Find out what you're able to do, whether it's reaching out to your family, to your friends, to your coworkers, to whoever. Just get connected and just let's keep building the power for we the people. Yeah.
Absolutely, Julio. Thank you so much once again for being there in Austin to capture all of the amazing speeches and just what was, put together for everybody. We have a lot of people who are able to watch from home and will be able to continue to catch up with this if they didn't watch it live. So thank you so much, Julio. Great to see you.
Thank you all so much. Gracias a todos.
Gracias, Julio. All right, so we are at the end of our program. Any final words, Ash or Rachel, before we sign off and say goodbye to the audience?
Just want to say thanks again to all of the organizations that banded together tonight to bring everybody out. This was really, really great. As I said before, much needed after a rough session. So thank you to everybody who came out. Thank you everybody who watched here live on YouTube and on Facebook and here in Zoom.
Yes, definitely want to echo that thank you to everybody. And also just want to drive home one more time that we are a super resilient community, and that these fights that we're in are not over, and that we need to channel that resilience into that fight, and that we are incredibly powerful together, and we are not a force to be underestimated.
Absolutely. Ash, Rachel, thank you so much for helping co-host this event and being a part of the command center. Once again, thank you to Vic and Yanira. Yanira, if you'd like to turn on your video so everyone can see you and say hi, we'd love to just see a hi from you. Amazing, amazing interpreters. Thank you so much for your amazing work. Thank you for the attendees who were able to listen to Vic and Yanira interpret the words that everybody shared. And once again, thank you to this amazing coalition, Texas for All. We put the link in the comments. If you end up watching this after it's already been broadcast, still put in the comments what your experience has been with the legislative session. Keep letting us know. If you need to get connected with any of these organizations, we want to be here to help you out. Thank you, everybody. We hope everyone has a great night.